Hey guys, Chase back here with another special video. Today we are going to be reacting to Nightclub turns into gas chamber, killing 242 university students in one night. Why am I watching this? Because you guys like when I react to Rotten Mango on YouTube. So I'm giving you guys what you want. And I just hope that at the end of this video I'm not fucked up like I was when I reacted to the Itaewon Halloween tragedy, 159 dead. And I'm literally going to a fucking bar on Sunday for my best friend's 21st birthday. What the fuck am I doing to myself? Here we go. Ghost, don't say anything bad. I don't want to have to blur out your chat again like I had to do another video. Having to do that in editing is crazy.
Bada bing, bada boo.
Gustavo stumbled out of the nightclub. He's barely keeping his balance. I mean, even to get out of the nightclub, he had to put his hands up against the wall to guide him out. Usually, when you first open those doors and you walk out, that fresh, crisp night air, just compared to the scent of liquor and smoke inside the club, it's refreshing. But Gustavo didn't really feel that tonight. He just felt dizzy, almost like he's hallucinating. He would look up and the sky was dark, it's black, but it's like a thick black color. Like imagine the night sky, but it's made out of cotton candy. It's dense. You almost kind of want to grab it. And then everything went black. The next time Gustavo opened his eyes, he's laying on the cold pavement next to somebody else who is also peacefully sleeping. He slowly gets up to not lose his balance, and he starts walking. He's just kind of wandering around aimlessly. Did he drive? Why can't he remember if he drove? Did it really even matter? Gustavo thought, well, I mean, I could drive home, right? But all I want to do is get home. It doesn't matter how. I just want to get home and take some painkillers like Advil. And then everything's going to feel better in the morning. He starts walking down the street and he noticed that people are looking at him with very concerned, scared, cautious looks. He's like, what? Do I have something on my face? He's swiping his cheeks. There's some sort of gray pigment on his fingers. He looks back up and a man comes up to him and splashes water onto his arms. Like a cup of water, just splashes him with it. Gustavo instinctively pulls back. It's very strange. Everyone tonight is acting very strange. But Gustavo didn't really feel the cold water much. It didn't bother him, so in order to not start a fight or a weird conversation, he just kept it moving. Then another woman yells after him, "Hey, you need to call an ambulance." No, ambulances are for the ones who need it. You need it. Something's wrong with your body. No, don't worry. It's just my shirt. I tore it up at the club and it's all shredded anyway.
What is wrong with him?
Gustavo could feel his shirt. It was shredded and hanging off of his body, and every time he walks, he would feel it swaying and hitting other parts of his torso. The woman looked at him very concerned. "Sir, you're not wearing a shirt."
Oh, hell no.
Gustavo walked towards a street lamp and he looked down at his arms.
Oh, hell no, please
The skin on his arms were hanging only by his wrist. His skin was melting off.
Oh, hell no. His skin was melting. Oh, no. Oh, fuck no. Stephanie always knows how to fucking, like, have us on the edges of our seats, bro. She's so fucking good at storytelling. What the fuck?
We would like to thank today's sponsors who have made it possible for Rotten Mango to support the Burn Institute, which is a nonprofit out of California whose goal is a community in which all burn survivors have the resources and support to overcome the psychological and physical effects of their injuries, as well as making sure the community members are educated on how to prevent fires and burns. This episode's partnerships have also made it possible to support Rotten Mango's growing team of dedicated researchers and translators. We would also like to thank you guys for your continued support as we work on our mission to be worthy advocates of these causes. Now, as always, full show notes are available at rottenmangopodcast.com. We worked with our wonderful Portuguese-speaking, Brazil-based researchers for this case to provide us with not only the primary sources that were not available in English, but also to gather the data for this one, but also, additionally, to provide context for all of the events. But as always, if anything at all has been lost in translation, miscommunicated, or even if you have something that we didn't cover about this case, please let us know down in the comments. So with that being said, let's get into it. It was a little weird for Lillian to walk through the club when the music isn't playing. It was unnervingly silent. Captain Lillian was in charge of the military brigade hospital, so she's tasked with being one of the very first people to go into the club after what happened.
Oh.
The police officers are trailing in behind her, and almost out of reflex, they turn around to walk back out because they don't want to be in here even a second longer. But they stop themselves, turn back around, and there's just tears streaming down their faces. Lillian turns to them.
What happened?
Don't cry. If you cry, who's going to do our jobs? We have no right to be weak right now. The worst has happened. Our job is to return these boys and girls to their parents as soon as possible. This is not the time to cry. Lillian shines the flashlight around the dark club. They all just stare out in silence into what's left of the dance floor. Wait, what is that? Did you guys hear that?
Oh no.
It's a phone ringing. And then another. And another. And it's like a sixth symphony harmonizing with each other. Dozens of phones were going off at the same time. Lillian stared out at the bodies that were piled 5 feet high on top of each other. It was like a mountain made of human bodies. Some were seemingly uninjured. When you look at them from the outside, there's not a single scratch on them. But still, they were laying there dead. Others had their skin melting off, like when you put plastic or rubber into the oven by accident and you turn it on. And all of their phones are going off at the same time. Every single call would go to voicemail. That night at Kiss Nightclub, an establishment frequented by college students, 632 people would be injured, 242 people would be killed, and most of them would be between the ages of 18 and 21. Mike looked at his 7 friends in front of him. These are like his best friends. Okay, they're gonna understand, right? Guys, I'm just not feeling it. I don't really want to go out tonight. I might have to skip this one. Like, don't be upset with me. It's gonna be fine. You guys will have a blast. They're all staring at him and they're like, yeah, no, we're gonna go. Come on, it's Andrielle's birthday. She only turns 22 once. You want to come, don't you? Yes, you do. You can't miss this one. Mike looked at his left, then his right, and his friends just looked so eager and happy. Like, how do you say no to that? They didn't even have class tomorrow. It's the weekend. So his friends, they're looking at him with these puppy dog eyes. Come on, Andrielle's favorite band is going to be performing. Okay, fine, I'll go. All of his friends start cheering. Kiss Nightclub, even on a normal weekend, I mean, it's got a reputation for being a very rowdy place. They said, if you want to go watch a UFC fight, you go to Kiss. The establishment is notorious for drunken fistfights. Great. Side note, the club is also notorious and nicknamed Kids by the locals because how easy it is for a minor to get in.
Oh boy.
The rumor has it, you could have a potato sack for your picture on your fake ID and you would still likely get in.
That's crazy.
But tonight, it just seemed a lot crazier than normal. I mean, it was college night, meaning the club had made a deal with the local university. So the university was going to host a party night, invite all of the students, not even just from their campus, but from all of the neighboring schools. Each person, each student trying to get in is going to have to pay a $3 cover fee. There would be 2 bands performing, so it's kind of a great deal. And that cover fee, all of that, would go to the university's graduation ceremony fund.
So school was involved.
Yes. Well, like a student association of the school. Now, the club benefits because once the students get in, I mean, they're going to be buying drinks, bottles, reserving VIP tables. It's a very lucrative deal for them. So typically, on a normal weekend, the club has about 1,000 people in attendance. Tonight, there were rumors of 2,000 people, mainly college students, squashed inside of that club, like just squished like sardines. Mike couldn't even see the floor anymore. It was so crowded to the point where even walking to one of the 2 restrooms in the club, it would have been an absolute journey. So Andrielle arrives with her closest friends, and everybody's staring at her, just jaws on the ground, because she usually likes to wear loose pants and sneakers. This time she made an effort. She's wearing a dress, high heels, and they pull Andrielle to the dance floor right in front of the stage, and they're screaming along with all the songs, dancing with each other. And Andrielle's best friend pulls her in closer and puts her face up to her ear. I'm going to use the restroom real quick. She was not going to use the restroom. She was squeezing her way through the crowd to get to the back of the stage, and she gave one of the band members a note. Please, 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 can you guys play Borracho y Loco? It means drunk and crazy. Please, it's my best friend's favorite song, and it's her birthday today. Please, 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 please.
Aww.
The bandmates nodded and the lead vocalist turned on the mic. This one's for Andrielle, who's celebrating her birthday today.
Aww.
Now the high energy is going to stay with the
Bro, that
group.
must
I
be
mean,
crazy,
even when
bro.
Andrielle's favorite band goes off the stage and is replaced by another group that she doesn't even really know, Andrielle's so busy, like ear to ear, smiling with her friends. This was going to be the best night ever.
It would have been too.
And then the lights go out. The entire club goes dark, and all you can hear are the screams.
Oh no.
Jess was laying in a hospital bed. She knew that if she fell asleep, she would die. She knew that, so why are the doctors telling her to get some rest? It was very tempting to just lay back, close her eyes for just a moment, relax. She was so tired, to unclench her jaw finally. But she knew that if she slept for too long, the woman in red would appear again, calling her name, reaching out her hand, drawing her in. And she knew it was all the drugs, right? She's hallucinating. But still, she's scared to follow the woman in the red. More and more patients were being brought in, and many of them with the same injuries and symptoms as Jess. Many of them were stunned to just be alive. How did you get out? How did you escape? I almost didn't. I saw someone screaming that they were leading me to the exit, and when I turned around to follow them, my friend yanked my arm and said, "No, that leads to the restroom. It's a dead end. We gotta go this way." She saved me. Who was the person screaming at you, guiding you? I don't know. It was a woman in red. Survivors started popping up everywhere, claiming that they had seen a woman in red calling people into the restroom of the club when the lights went out, telling them that it was the exit. But once they got there, they were trapped. And they would have just 3 minutes to get out, or else they would be dead. More than 100 bodies would be found in the bathroom. And it's all because of a firework. Did you know Disney is the second largest buyer of explosives in the world? Of explosives, yeah,
Really?
only behind the United States Department of Defense. But if we're measuring by fireworks and ignoring the other types of explosives, Disney is the largest buyer of fireworks in the entire world.
You say United States
Well, never
Government.
fancy room.
they buy a lot of firework?
Explosives. Fireworks are considered
Oh.
explosives, yeah.
Got it.
Now, Disney World does a fireworks show every single night, and each show costs around $40,000. Now, some of that goes to purchasing the fireworks, but a majority of that goes into hiring pyrotechnicians. So these are specialists that are professionally educated and certified to oversee the use of pyrotechnics during any event. Pyrotechnics are any sort of firework, any sort of like fire show that includes usage of gunpowder and
fireworks thing?
gas to
Oh, wait,
create
I don't-
these
I don't get
sparks.
it.
Every concert that you've been to that has any sort of firework, they probably got a lot of pyrotechnicians there. Yeah, I mean, to make sure that the fireworks do not work like an explosive weapon, but rather a display of art, that takes a lot of time to learn. Because fireworks are
bet.
literally like bombs. To set off most fireworks, the user lights a fuse. The heat travels all the way to this compartment in the tube or the container that has gunpowder. I mean, there's this very special type of gunpowder that goes in there. It's called black powder. Now, once the heat reaches it, it starts responding by creating a very, very hot gas, but it's trapped. The gunpowder's trapped. On top of it is a shell. It's like a round, it's just like a ball. And inside the ball, there's a bunch of stuff, but it's a ball sitting on top. And once the gas is hot enough, once it's gassy enough, the shell on top of the gunpowder is going to be launched, catapulted into the sky. And once it reaches a certain speed or altitude, it's going to burst open and everything inside is going to technically explode.
Right.
Usually there's a ton of small pellets in there that contain like a whole variety of things. Chemical compounds, different metal salts. I mean, those result in colors and effects like sparkling being made, because you know how some fireworks, they sparkle.
Yeah.
Some pellets even have chemicals inserted that cause special noises, like potassium chlorate results in a large boom sound.
Yeah.
And then bismuth creates kind of a more crackling, popping noise with some fireworks. If you fill that tube with other compounds that are not necessarily going to be used for the firework display, once it shoots up, those can actually cause that a slowdown of the pellets. So it creates that whistling noise that you hear in a lot of fireworks. They manufacture the sounds as well. The Alcohol, Tobacco, and Explosives divisions in the government stated display fireworks, these types of fireworks, are subject to regulation under federal explosive laws.
True.
Because they are
True.
explosives. If you're not careful with fireworks, you could lose a finger or a face or even die.
Literally.
Doctors working the ER stated working the weekend of 4th of July in America is kind of like a war zone. There was a man that walked in with his entire hand blown off and almost a gaping hole that you could see through in his stomach. They stated that he was drunk, trying to position a firework away from him and blow it off into the sky. But after realizing that he lit the fuse, he realized it was pointed at him instead of up at the sky. So very last minute, he tries to cover it. He puts his hand to the tube and it blew off his entire hand and it went into his stomach, the firework. During the 4th of July, another kid took a construction hard helmet, taped a large firework to the top of it, and then lit it on fire because he thought it would just shoot off his helmet. The bottom of the firework got so hot, it melted through the helmet and then into his scalp and then into his brain in the matter of seconds. He did not even make it to the hospital.
Oh my
People
God.
get injured so often with fireworks.
Scary.
There's even a term for it. For hand injuries, they call it pomegranate hand because it's going to blow off all your fingers. I feel like it's kind of offensive, but that's just to show, I guess, how frequent these injuries happen. A member of Disney World's pyrotechnic team would go on to say, anything can happen at any time. It's explosives, it's fireworks. Something is going to happen. It's not if, it's when.
Now I wonder like how many accidents happened in the history of Disney. That must be.
Yeah. I believe a firework company somewhere in Europe, if I'm not mistaken, where a firework exploded. And because they did not house the rest of their fireworks well, all the fireworks that they had in their warehouse exploded at the same time.
Yeah.
It was really bad. I think it had like a bomb level reaction.
Damn.
It was horrendous. So now,
And people like fireworks.
the owner is asking, what exactly do you need the fireworks for? Marcelo was the lead vocalist for the band that was going to be performing at Kiss Nightclub for University Night. It's college kids. He feels like they need to have all the crazy antics set up. So Marcelo makes his way to the fireworks shop, and the owner is asking him about how are you going to be using it? How many people? I mean, is it going to be outside, inside? I'm trying to recommend the appropriate one. I mean, I've used these before. I just need one of those big sparklers, like, that just shoots out. It's like a stick and thousands of sparks come out. And you see those at the clubs, right? Oh, at the club. Okay, well, if it's inside, you're going to need the indoor one. It has cold sparks, so it's much harder for it to ignite something or someone. It's $15. 15? Okay, since you're performing at a fundraiser for university students, I'll give you a discount. Let's make it 10 today. Well, how much is this one? That one is cheaper, but it's not indoor safe. Well, how much is it? It's 50 cents. Well, then I'll take this one.
Oh,
$9.50 would cost 242 lives.
Literally.
The order of songs an artist performs during their concert is
bro.
incredibly meticulous, and it leans into human psychology. I mean, yeah, they want to sing the songs that they want to sing, but they say concerts are like a live animal. You have to raise up the emotion, start with a well-loved song that everybody knows the lyrics to. Then you got to get in with another hit. Maintain that momentum. Then you bring it down slow. Slow it down just for a little bit. If you slow it down for too long, people are just going to walk away feeling let down.
Yeah.
Then you need to rise it up again, but this time higher than the last, and then let it down again. And then at the end, you need to have some of the biggest hits, better hits for the encore. Not even for the finale, because the memories of the last few songs are the strongest for concert goers. It's more like a wave that finally crescendos into a tsunami at the end. Now, when Marcelo's looking out into the crowd, everybody already has both their arms up. They're swaying in the air, they're jumping up and down, screaming at the top of their lungs, and they're only like a few songs in. What more is the band gonna do? So the lead vocalist leans down and tells the band producer, give me the firework that I prepped. This was the band's go-to for an epic finale. So the firework, it looks, like I said, like a giant candle, like a giant tube that generates like a trail of sparkles. So not just a steady flame, but thousands of angry sparks will just be flying out of it. The vocalist and the producer, they light it up. The singer has a glove on his hand and he lights up the firework. He lifts his arm up above his head, which is dangerous. The stage was already raised to a level where if you stood on the stage and you were above average height, you lift your arms above your head, you could almost touch the ceiling. But Marcelo is lifting up a huge firework that can shoot sparks up to 13 feet out of the top. And he's raising it up towards the ceiling. A big trail of sparkles are just shooting out of it, and one of the sparks meets the foam insulation on the ceiling, and a small blue fire starts. Almost like when you turn on a gas stove. That color blue. It looks like that on the ceiling, and it's small. The band producer tries to think quick, and he throws a water bottle up at the ceiling to try and tame it, to put out the fire. It only makes the fire angrier. The blue fire turns into an enraged red flame that's quickly spreading across the entire ceiling. Hurry, get the fire extinguisher. One of the employees runs onto the stage with the extinguisher. He aims it up to the ceiling, squeezes the handle, and shit. He looks back down at it, he shakes it with both hands, and then he aims again and tries it again. Nothing.
Oh my god.
Allegedly, a few days ago, an employee had used the extinguisher at a friend's birthday party at the club. He thought it would be fun and wild to just pop the tamper seal off the extinguisher and spray it onto the people on the dance floor.
A little party.
Like a Party X vibe. He was screaming at the crowd like,
and because of that,
and everybody's just getting sprayed with the extinguisher foam, and it's supposed to be for fun. It's supposed to be like the most insane party in town. And allegedly, they did not order another one. They just put it back into the same spot, and nobody thought that they would actually need it for the intended purpose anytime soon. So water's not going to put the fire out. This is a fire that water is only going to make angrier.
Yep.
The fire extinguisher isn't going to put it out because they don't have any. And the fire is only getting bigger. There are black fumes that are now billowing from the ceiling, black clouds just rushing towards people on the dance floor. The fire on the ceiling starts spreading out almost in a perfect circle. It almost looks like a portal is opening up above everyone.
Fuck that.
Like a portal to hell.
Fuck.
The black clouds would spread within 40 seconds to cover the entire club. Even if you ran as fast as you could to the nearest exit, you would look behind you and you would see everything slowly getting covered in black mist and fog. It looked like it's chasing you. Marcelo, the lead vocalist who lit the firework, he's standing right in front of the mic. He could have just leaned in and screamed, "Get out, fire!" But he didn't. He U-turned and ran the other way. He was one of the very first people out of the club that night.
Fucking coward.
There were club goers in other rooms of that club that did not even know there was a fire until it was too late.
You mean they're trapped in there?
Yeah. Because the ceiling was made out of polyurethane. Do you know what's in your mattress? So back then it used to be springs, maybe some fabric and some fancy stitching. But these days it's just foam. It's just layers and layers of foam stacked on top of each other. And for a very long time, polyurethane foam was the more affordable memory foam mattress composition. That's what it was mainly made out of. The overwhelming majority of that mattress would be made out of polyurethane. And polyurethane can kill you. So you're sleeping on a fatal weapon every single night. But don't freak out. Polyurethane is in everything. You can never escape it. It's in mattresses, bedding, bath mats, the foamy ones. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's in car seats, carpets. It's in your walls. It's in your insulation. You can probably find polyurethane basically in every single part of your house. And it's fine, as long as you don't light it on fire. When it's on fire, the gases that are released will kill you in about 3 minutes. Polyurethane releases, when it's on fire, carbon monoxide and hydrogen cyanide. Hydrogen cyanide is basically just cyanide, but instead of the white powder form, it's in gas or liquid form. It's just as deadly, if not deadlier. Some experts argue it's one of the most dangerous forms of cyanide out there. Back when the U.S. did executions via the gas chamber, hydrogen cyanide poisoning was the cause of death for a lot of inmates. That's what they used.
So basically, that's what the club is.
Yeah.
Now.
A gas chamber. The first stages start taking effect at the very first inhale. It's a suffocatingly heavy feeling. Like someone, maybe a 150-pound man, is sitting on your chest. And you try to breathe and get a full breath in, but at this point, it's not working. You can't lift your chest and you start hyperventilating because your chest feels so tight. And then it slowly evolves. The person sitting on your chest somehow transforms into a 9,000-pound elephant. That's what it feels like.
I hate
and
that.
Now you really can't even move. The veins in your neck and your eyes, they start bulging out. You feel like you're choking. You start coughing, but it only makes your chest hurt more. And your face is red. Your jaw feels like it's completely clenched. And suddenly you are completely out of oxygen. Your vision starts to go fuzzy. Your brain starts shutting down and you just want to go to sleep. If you're lucky,
that would feel bad
that's what's going to happen. You're going to go to sleep. Otherwise, the convulsions start. The body starts to jerk uncontrollably. Every single muscle is stiff and tight. And at this point, your lungs are completely paralyzed. Even if you want to take a breath, you can't. By the 5-minute mark, death is absolutely imminent. A while back, before the university party, Kiss nightclub owners started getting complaints every day for noise pollution. Neighbors started saying that they could not sleep, they could not function because there would just be music playing, blasting into their homes at 3 a.m. on any given night. So please, you gotta do something about it or I will call the police. The club owners looked into special non-flammable acoustic foam that can block out the loud noises of the band. But the owners allegedly decided to purchase mattresses instead. They allegedly had the employees rip them apart and glue them to the ceilings because foam is foam, right? Like, what's the difference between acoustic foam other than a huge price markup?
Because that's always happening with people be cheap.
This was a DIY project, you're saying?
Now, some sources say that it was not from a mattress, that they purchased polyurethane foam by itself. Some sources say that they took it from a mattress. Either way, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to glue polyurethane foam onto the ceiling. They just thought, I need to get rid of this noise leakage. The ceiling was made out of polyurethane. If I have to move to the front door, the.com.
Sorry. Bro, why are people so cheap, bro?
Now, 40 seconds is about 23% of 3 minutes. And when people get to the front door, the exit, the guard is standing there. Sorry, I can't let you out. What do you mean you can't let us out? Move out the way. We're going to die in here. They could hear the screams coming from the other room of the club. It's just another bar fight. Get out more if you think this is the biggest danger you're going to face. I need your full name first. Why do you need my full name? I need to get out. Just open the doors. We're going to die in here.
Wait, they don't let them leave the club when they want to?
No. You can leave once we verify that your tab has been paid. If you don't pay, you don't get to leave. And guess who ends up paying it if you don't? Me. It comes out of my paycheck. So boss's orders, give me your full name. They stood there screaming. A crowd had formed around the guard demanding to be let out, but he's not budging. He has no idea there's a fire. He thinks they're making it up. Like, fire not because you're drunk and you need to pay your tab.
So
he stood there like a rock, keeping them trapped for 40 seconds. People around them start slowly dropping to the ground, coughing, hunched over, holding their throats, and then the black cloud started chasing towards the exit. Then the lights went out, and boom, someone had kicked the door open. 40 crucial seconds were wasted by the guards not wanting to let people out because they needed to make sure that they paid their tabs.
Fuck their tabs.
The fire would eventually get to the electrical wires of the structure and all of the lights would be shut off. People could not see anything. There were no emergency lights indicating an escape route, which is against all code and that's such a violation of permitting. You need to have emergency lights.
Literally.
Because of the electrical wiring, the only light that was still on inside the entire club, in this basically windowless, dark club, was the light inside the bathroom. And that was not even intentional. It's just maybe it had a different circuit. And all 2,000 people, they're trying to go there because they think it's the exit.
Who was telling
the layout
about
of the club was kind of like a maze. So if you look down from above, there's only one way in and one way out. And the giant single level floor and separate rooms. So they're not necessarily divided by doors. But when you first walk in, there's this big rectangular room. And on the left, there's bar stools. And then there's steps that lead to a wall. Now this wall has like arched cutouts, doorways without the doors, and that leads you into the stage room where there's another bar, there's a whole stage set up, people are dancing on the floor. It's fun. Then you walk back out to where you just came in from. On your left, now you have a restroom. It's one of the 2 restrooms. You go past that, and on the right, you're gonna see a VIP area with another bar. It's almost in its own little nook as well, almost like another room. Then you walk back out towards the exit, but you don't keep going straight, you make a left. That's where the restroom is. But it's a dead end. It was confusing enough of a layout that first-time club goers would go to purchase drinks at the bar and would get lost on their way back to their friends. Or sometimes club goers would hear screaming coming from one side of the club. They would just assume that it was another bar fight because they didn't really know. And then the bathroom, to some people, that bathroom light looked like an exit sign. Others said it resembled street lights. Like if someone had just opened the door and you saw street lights coming in, that was the exit right there. That's what people are thinking. So as long as you can get there, you could survive. That's what everybody thought. Just follow the light. And they ended up in a dead-end bathroom. People were screaming at them in the dark, "Turn back! This is not the exit! Turn back! This is the bathroom!" Everyone would turn around, and if the lights had turned, they would see that there's no way to turn back around. I mean, there are hundreds of more people pushing into the restroom, trying to get through. They're trying to push them out into an exit that doesn't exist. More than 100 people would be found dead in that tiny little restroom.
Oh my
One man
God.
was found dead with his head dunked into the toilet because he had been trying to escape the toxic fumes.
Crazy.
He had been trying to stay alive. In other areas of the club, nobody could see anything. They just heard screaming, coughing, crying. And because of the fumes and the heat from the fire, people are starting to pass out on the floor. Wherever they were on their way to find an exit, they would just drop. They would just pass out in the middle. They were getting disoriented from the fumes of the melted toxic foam. And if someone tripped on an unconscious body on the ground, they would get trampled over with very low chances of getting back up. They would be crushed to death.
My God.
By this point, the fiery portal that was burning through the ceiling started to literally rain chunks of flaming hot foam. If a piece so much as touched one of the attendees' skin, it would have felt similar to the sensation of accidentally touching the hot racks of an oven as you're pulling out a frozen pizza. Except you can't pull your arm away. It's just there. You have to hold on to the burning rack. Once the searing 400-degree Fahrenheit foam touches the skin, it would have clung on like saran wrap. If they tried to swipe it off with their hands, the foam would just scorch their hands. It would blister through every layer of skin, and their skin would just come off as they were removing the foam like saran wrap. Likely, it would have disintegrated the underlying muscle and tissue as well. Even the people that were able to reach the exit door, I mean, they couldn't get out. There were metal barriers set up right outside the club door to prevent people from running out without paying their tab. It's like a pool railing. So when everyone is pushing up against you, you can't get over it. You don't have enough space to move your leg up and over the railing because everyone is slamming into you from behind. You don't have enough space to crouch down underneath it because your stomach is getting squashed. You can't slide down to underneath the metal bar. So even though the exit door is right in front of their faces, they could just reach out and touch it with their hands. They could not escape.
Is this inside or outside? This is still inside.
Bro.
They have barriers inside the right in front of the door.
Right in front of the door. They couldn't escape. Passerbys on the street had seen the commotion. They saw the thick black smoke mushrooming from the club. It could be seen from like a mile away at this point. Passerbys ran up to the exit door, yanked it open, and started just pulling people out. Club goers would be passed out from lack of oxygen, being crushed up against the railing or the fumes, and a stranger would just grab them by the underarms and lift them out. Others had to be grabbed by their clothes because passerbys saw that they had third-degree burns on their arms. And this is something that comes up, but
no, please.
a lot of people would try to grab someone by their arm and the skin would just fall off. So they would have to find different ways to grab them to get out of the club. That night, hundreds of calls were made to 911. Please, I'm seeing here from my building a thick, horrible smoke coming near Kiss Nightclub. Screams are coming out. Horrible, horrible scene, please. Hello, 911? Everything is burned here. Hello, fire department. Kiss Nightclub is on fire. The Kiss Nightclub is on fire. Help. Many parents and family of the attendees had made it to the club in the middle of the night. They had gotten out of bed. They had heard word that Kiss Nightclub was on fire, and they remembered their loved ones were going to be in attendance. They rushed to put on whatever clothes that they had and traveled as quickly as possible to the nightclub. There was a traffic jam outside the club for miles. Some parents just completely abandoned their cars and started running on foot to the club to find their babies. They would have one phone to their ear, nonstop calling their kids, nonstop calling 911 while running up to every gray suit covered person. So they're all covered in gray dirt, just trying to get the dirt off their face to see, is that my baby? Is that my baby? One parent called 911. Please just tell me what happened. Please just tell me. My daughter was in there. She was at the party on that street. What's going on? Another parent just screams into the phone, "Where's Fernando? Where's Fernando? Where's Fernando?" In another call, the 911 operator tries to comfort one of the dads that called looking for their son. They're okay. They're okay. No, everyone inside is dead, man. Yes, inside, but not your son. I don't believe you.
I'd be like, bitch, my son was
Nobody was very clear
inside."
on what's going on. What everybody knew was there's a huge, large-scale fire at the Kiss nightclub. There were deceased victims splayed out on the street outside of the club. There were periodically new victims rushing out of the club, but inside it was completely pitch black. Most victims were covered head to toe in gray suit, making them look like zombies. What took people a minute to realize was just how many people were still trapped inside the club.
No.
There were already so many people lined up outside, so many bodies lined up on the street, and people were trying to cover their bodies with plastic bags. Things got difficult, though, when parents had to go body to body and lift up the plastic sheet and check to see if any of the bodies belonged to their child. And if they found their child laying there, I mean, what did they do? They would just fall down and weep over their bodies. It just felt like nobody was coming to help. Meanwhile, at the local hospital, Dr. D's colleagues, they're a little superstitious, all of them. They all kind of believe in bad omens when it comes to work. Dr. D does not entertain any of those. The whole, if any healthcare worker in the emergency department utters the words, "It's been a quiet day, huh?" then everything goes to shit and it's going to be pure chaos.
Bro.
He doesn't really subscribe to those beliefs.
Yeah, this actually
But
happened.
it has been awfully calm. It did oddly feel like they were waiting for a storm. There had been no serious emergency in the past 7 days that even required an ambulance to be dispatched in the whole city. That was not normal, or at least for their hospital, it wasn't normal. Even Dr. D didn't have a good feeling about this. The day after his shift, around midnight, he was driving home with the music on. He passed by Kiss nightclub, saw a line of young students waiting to get in. College days are a different time, you know? Like, he has a wife and parents that he's got to take care of in a different town, so no nightclubs for him. He goes home, he crashes onto the bed, and the phone starts ringing. He shoots up, grabs it from the nightstand. Patricia, his wife, is up and staring at him eyes wide because it's 3:30 in the morning. You only get one type of call at 3:30 in the morning, the bad ones. It was Dr. D's colleague, Dr. Pedro. Why is he calling at this hour? Hello? Wait, slow down. What's going on? Dr. D pulls his phone away from his ear because Dr. Pedro is screaming on the other line, loud enough for even Dr. D's wife to hear. Fire! Fire! Please, come to the Kiss nightclub right now. Dead students everywhere! Patricia saw her husband turn into another man. His eyes are focused. He jumps out of bed. In a fluid wave of motions, he grabs his change of clothes, his medical bag, goes to the kitchen, opens the fridge, grabs 3 coquettes, and shoves them into his pocket. Because he knows in these moments, he doesn't know when his next meal is going to be, and he needs to stay sharp. Patricia prepared a cab for him, and by the time that he made it to the club, only 5 minutes had passed. Sir, taxi driver, are you sure there's no faster way to get to the club? They look in front of him, and there are just rows and rows of standby traffic. They're all at a standstill.
You just gotta get out and walk.
No cars are moving. Dr. D reaches into his pocket, gets a wad of bills out, throws them at the taxi driver, and starts running on foot to the club.
Yeah.
He felt like he was a doctor in a war zone. That's what he said. People were walking around the street like zombies, all gray from the fumes and coughing. Firefighters had arrived. They're hosing down parts of the building and taking axes to the side of the building to try and open up a bigger exit way. Civilians are dragging unconscious friends onto the street and performing CPR. Bodies are lined up on the side neatly in a row. They're unmoving. They're dead. Some people were just dazed. They kept walking around everyone, lost, confused, because the fumes had disoriented them so much. They didn't even realize that they had 40% burns on their bodies.
Oh my God.
Ambulances are trying to rush in and out of the scene carrying stacks of bodies to the nearby hospitals. Dr. D spots Dr. Pedro on an ambulance, drenched in sweat, performing CPR. Without even saying a word, he gets to work. Side by side, they would search each victim brought out for signs of life. When they had none, they would have volunteers move their bodies out of the ambulance. No signs of life. We need to move on. We need to keep moving. But civilians would refuse. What do you mean no signs of life? She's still warm. Her cheeks are red. She looks like she's sleeping. She's not bleeding. She doesn't have any burns or injuries. She's alive. You have to save her. You're not doing your job. She's clearly alive. Many of the young people weren't burnt. A good amount of them were, and they had really severe burns that would require them to stay in the burn unit for a very long time. But a lot of the victims had died from smoke inhalation. So other than the gray dust covering them and sticking to their hair, they all just looked like they were taking a nap. So a lot of their friends and family, they could not trust the doctor. You have to keep trying. I'm telling you, she's alive. Like, she doesn't even have a cut on her body. In the moment, Dr. D was too focused on getting to the next victim that it didn't really set in. But later he must have felt very odd, like an odd sense of guilt. He didn't want them to be dead either. He didn't want to give up on them either, but they were gone. What more could he do? He said there would be moments where he would break focus for 2 seconds. He would look up at the sheer chaos and just the pure desperation in everyone, and he would just have a full-blown panic attack setting in, and he would have to talk himself out of it. No, you cannot lose control right now. People are depending on you for a chance at survival.
Bro.
Wait, what are they doing over there? Dr. D sees a group of young men taking off their shirts, grabbing a water bottle and drenching the shirts in water, covering their faces with it, and running inside to rescue people. He didn't know if these were complete strangers. He didn't know if these were people who had been inside the club that escaped, that still had friends inside, or if they were family members that showed up at the scene after the fire broke out, or maybe they were volunteer fighters. He didn't know. All he knew is all of them would be found dead by the end of the night.
Oh my god.
The people that ran inside?
They would die trying to save more lives. We need more ambulances to transport victims to the hospitals. They need to get to an emergency facility now. Most of the hospitals nearby had sent every single ambulance they had. They were overwhelmed with victims. Dr. D looks around and there's no more ambulances left. And a taxi driver raises his hand. And another hand shoots up, and it's a civilian. It's a passerby, then another taxi driver. They would all help transport the injured to local hospitals. 16-year-old Julio had called his mom at 4 a.m, and she woke up frantic. What's wrong? Why are you calling me? Did something happen? No, it's just Augusto, his older brother. Augusto said he was going to pick me up at 2:30 so we could go home, but he never showed up, and I've just been kind of waiting for the past 1.5 hours. I heard there's something going on at Kiss Nightclub, and last I talked to Augusto, he said he was going to go there. I don't know what's going on. Their mom hung up and woke up their dad in a hurry. They both threw on whatever clothes they had. They grabbed a set of keys to their family Honda, their car, but they realized it was gone. Augusto had taken it that night. Shoot, they don't have a car. So they rushed to their neighbors. I'm so sorry to bother you at this hour, but please trust us. We would not ask unless it was absolutely necessary. Our son took our family car and something's happening at the nightclub. I don't know if you heard. You could ask anybody. Something's happening. Could you please just take us there? They jump into the neighbor's car and they start making their way there. Augusto's dad was a mess. He was really close with his son. He never had a close relationship with his own dad. And Augusto's dad has always been kind of a very stoic man. He was a military man since he was young. And Augusto's very first word was life-changing to him. It was like a gut punch. Because instead of mom or dad, his first word was selva, which, according to our Brazilian researcher, means jungle. And it's kind of a greeting term that you say to a military man. And Augusto's dad did not want that kind of relationship with his son. So he changed his whole life. He changed his way of parenting, of communicating. And ever since then, they were like best friends.
Aww.
This was his best friend. When the neighbor's car pulls up closer to Kiss Nightclub, Augusto's parents start to panic. Any hope that they had was rapidly exiting their bodies. It was utter chaos. They run out of the car and they sprint to the club and stop. They stop dead in their tracks. Because in front of them is a long line of dead bodies. They hold on to each other because otherwise they would have fainted. They try to look for Augusto's face in the line, but nothing. They try to peer into the club. There's nothing. It's pitch black. Nobody's telling them what's going on. The best shot that they had was Augusto's dad pulls out the spare key for the family Honda. We got to go to the parking lot and search for his car. If we find it, we know that he's still in here and he might be in there in the club.
Oh god.
They start going row by row, clicking the button to see if any car beeps and if any of the lights glow up.
Please
don't be here. Maybe he went out with friends somewhere else and forgot about his brother and his phone died and he's just having fun. They push the unlock button for the family Honda.
It went off.
And they both freeze. They click it again. And a few cars down, they hear beep beep.
No.
It's the family's black Honda.
No.
Augusto would die that night. In front of the club, everyone is just talking over each other. I mean, people are screaming. I looked behind me and I saw a young man and his skin was melting off. I took off my heels because I didn't want to step on people. They were like piled a few feet high. I just step on them to get out. Please, just let me go back in. Let me go back in. I have to save my girlfriend. She's still in there. Giovanni was standing outside the club, frantically scanning every face that ran out the door. He had been one of the first to escape, but his brother and their 2 friends were still in there. Giovanni was holding onto his ribs, coughing and scanning the faces. His brother, I mean, there's no way he's going to go home without his brother. Giovanni wet his t-shirt, tied it around his face. Now, side note, Giovanni had been in an accident 10 years ago where he lost 40% of one of his lungs.
Oh no.
But he forced himself to take the biggest breath that he could, and he ran back inside, and the plan was to go find where his brother was, to retrace their steps, and he would get his brother out. But once he got in, he saw people crawling. How is he gonna ignore them to go find his brother? Like, he can't just push past these people to go find his brother. That's not what his brother would have wanted. So he just starts pulling people out. The first person he grabbed their arms to pull them, but they slipped and their burned skin was in Giovanni's hands. Giovanni had to think quick. He started grabbing men by their belts and women by their shirts, and he formed a bit of an assembly line with other volunteers. They were just passing bodies until they were reaching the outside. His eyes were stinging. His lungs felt like 1,000 needles were inside, just embedding themselves. It'd be another person, and he'd tell himself, one more. If I can just get one more person out, just one more. And he would keep pushing himself.
Oh my God.
Most of the bodies he saved were semi-conscious and covered head to toe in gray suit. They were unrecognizable, especially in the dark. We don't know exactly how many people Giovanni was able to save, but he had originally done all of this in an attempt to save his brother, whom he believed was still in the back of the club. Giovanni would be hospitalized and he would be defeated until his parents got a call. Giovanni's brother was alive. He had been handed off by Giovanni to an ambulance, and he did not even know that was his brother.
Oh my God.
Because he was covered head to toe in dirt.
He saved his brother.
Dr. Ayrton was a trauma surgeon at the local emergency department. He had just received a call that hundreds, if not closer to 1,000 university students had been injured by a fire, and they were going to be transported to all of the emergency departments nearby. Dr. Ayrton gathered his entire team, got them prepped. Everything we've done and learned up until this point was for a reason. We cannot fail these kids. Everybody needs to be ready. We are at war. Custodial staff, we're going to need all hands on deck. Grab the oxygen tanks. We need to keep them circulating, distribute them to whoever comes in and needs them, and prepare the rooms. Every spare room that we have in this hospital that is not occupied by an existing patient, transform it into a makeshift ICU unit. And if we run out of rooms, put beds in the hallways. They called neighboring hospitals to request immediate delivery and loan of their respirators. Doctors and nurses from neighboring towns were also making their way over. It was an all hands on deck, all Hail Mary situation. Santa Maria is known for being a university city, a college town. So there are 7 private universities and a major public university. It amounts to about 40,000 students in that city. And there's only 7 hospitals. Emergency departments in 5 of them, ICU units in 6 of them, and all the freestanding smaller emergency units around the city were going to be quickly overwhelmed with the victims from the fire. Loved ones of attendees were already gathered outside the hospitals. It was getting nearly impossible to get near Kiss Nightclub with the traffic jam. So they thought, let's just wait at the hospitals. That way, if we see our loved ones being escorted in, we can be by their side. Many of the hospitals needed to start manually ventilating the patients with oxygen masks and air pumps. That means instead of a machine, because they ran out, there would have to be staff manually pumping a bag, and if they stop, a patient dies. Dr. Ayrton's nearly 300 beds fill up so fast, they need more help, more supplies, more beds. Dr. Ayrton didn't want to alarm anyone, but it was very obvious that it's not just a regular fire, because at this point, they have no idea it's hydrogen cyanide. All the patients coming in from KISS needed to be intubated. Intubated meaning inserting a tube into someone's throat for ventilation. They needed to be intubated fast. Even if patients walk into the hospital seemingly fine, they'd be like, no, I was in the fire, I'm fine, I'm just a little bit dizzy, but I'm breathing now, the coughing has stopped. But if they weren't intubated, Dr. Ayrton would turn around and they would code. All of them needed to be intubated. Dr. Ayrton was so laser focused going from one patient to another. I mean, the hospital is a wreck. There are patients piling on each other. Almost every few seconds, you would hear someone screaming, "Code blue, code blue." Doctors would just be running down the hallway. Some patients looked normal, not a single scratch on their skin when they coded. Other patients had very deep, extreme burns all over their skin. There were screams of pain, coughing. People were coughing so hard they were throwing up blood. Skin was shredded and melting off like candle wax from victims. Blisters, there were red, white, and blue, and just black patches of human flesh that didn't even look human, mixed with blood. And then the hospital door slammed open, and there laying on a hospital bed was Dr. Ewerton's son. His wife was by their son's side, and their son was coughing. He was blue around the mouth and having difficulty breathing. All Dr. Ewerton wanted to do was freeze. That is his son. But then he remembered the words of a famous surgeon. In an emergency situation, if you think too much, a patient dies. We have to intubate him. Dr. Ewerton's son grabbed his hand. Dad, please no, I don't want to be intubated. I feel okay. I have to, or you will die. He intubated his son immediately and rushed him to the ICU. Meanwhile, Dr. D called the Air Force. This is an emergency. We need to take desperate measures or the patients will die. I need your help. Okay, what do you need? We need to airlift patients to neighboring towns. Okay, how many patients do you need to airlift? 3? 4?
Thousands.
At least
hundreds.
50. But there was a problem with the survivors. Most of them were being brought in unconscious or they were being intubated, meaning they cannot communicate with the hospital staff. Most of the guys being brought in had their IDs in their pockets, but many of the women that were brought in, they typically kept it in their wallets, in their purses,
Yep.
and those were left behind at the scene. They could not be airlifted unless they could be ID'd.
Are you serious?
A volunteer dentist was going from room to room, just writing down characteristics of everybody without an ID. Weight, height, tattoos, scars, skin marks, and then periodically a list of names and characteristics would be read outside the hospital. But that also resulted in a lot of pain because families would think, oh, that sounds like my daughter. And they would run into the room that their daughter was supposedly in, and it's not their daughter. And if their names were not called out or their descriptions were not called out, most likely they had passed. At 5:45 a.m., January 27th, 2013, firefighters announced that there was no possibility of life inside the club anymore.
Right.
If they went in, it would be purely to recover bodies, not to rescue. Dr. D was asked to put on a mask and go inside and verify their belief. He went in to check for any vital signs of life. All he had was his mask, flashlight, and a light med bag just in case. First few bodies he stumbled upon, well, actually the first body that he stumbled upon, he quickly searched for a pulse, nothing. Then he shined the light at the victim's face, and it was familiar.
Oh no.
It was an ex-colleague, someone that he used to work with. But he couldn't afford to get emotional now. He had to go deeper into the club, check for more signs of life.
It was a doctor as well?
I believe they were like a med staff. He had to walk away from his ex-colleague's body. He said, when I got inside, I saw bodies everywhere. It was a heavy scene, very sad, very shocking, and in some places, bodies were piled up more than 5 feet tall. He saw the bodies in their last moments, attempting to survive. He said he saw one man with his head submerged in the toilet, another one with his body facing the open freezer. They were all dead. He walked out of the club, took off his mask, and he announced, no possibility of life inside the club. Raphael looked at his dad. Are you sure you're going to be okay? Yes, go have fun. Raphael was hesitant. His dad had suffered a stroke a few weeks back, and Raphael was the only one taking care of him, and he was about to go out of town to hang out with friends. I can just call Natalia and cancel the whole trip. No, it's your birthday, Raphael. Go have fun. Raphael had plans to meet Natalia in Santa Maria, to stay with Natalia and another friend, and go to the Kiss nightclub that night. But he just kept second-guessing himself. He grabbed his suitcase, headed out the door, but before he did, he went to his dad's bathroom and wrote, I love you, on the mirror. He walked out. Now, that weekend, Raphael, Natalia, and another friend of theirs would be at Kiss nightclub when the fire broke out. Natalia and Felipe both lived in Santa Maria, so their families were there to help them and look for them. But Raphael's parents, they didn't live there. They lived in a few towns over. Natalia's dad remembers getting that phone call. His daughter had been found. She was in a hospital. She was in a coma, but she was in a hospital. She was going to get operated on. And they also found Raphael. He was at the local gymnasium. Natalia's dad sat there with his hands on his steering wheel for a split second. I mean, he could easily go to his daughter, Natalia. She'd be in a coma, but at least he could be near her, near the hospital, just in case she wakes up, in case the doctor needs something. He could be there for his daughter. But who would be there for Raphael? His parents were getting on the first flight to Santa Maria, but, I mean, he was completely alone right now. So Natalia's dad entered the address for the gymnasium and went to find Raphael. He knew that's what Natalia would have wanted. So he went to the gym and sat with Raphael until his parents came. From the moment he walked into that gym, he did not leave, not even for a second, until Raphael's family could take over. Even when he got a call that Natalia's situation, his own daughter's situation and condition was getting worse, he did not leave.
Aww.
He sat there next to Raphael's dead body, staring out at the sea of victims laying on the gymnasium floor.
He was dead.
Over 200 of them, lined up in rows, waiting for their families. There were hundreds of young college students just there. And every 3 minutes, you would hear a scream. And it would be one of those ear-piercing screams that sounds like it's echoing off the walls and making every bone in your body vibrate. It is guttural. It is primal. It is the deepest, purest form of pain. And it would happen every 3 minutes like clockwork. The scream of a parent who had found who they had been looking for. Their child. Ador, is that you? The door to Grandma Oliveira's house clicked open. Ador, honey, is that you? Ador was her grandson that was living with her, and he was supposed to be back last night, but he didn't make it home. She remembered distinctly he was busy working on his laptop. He's only 24, but he had this new business he set up. It's like an open bar business. So he and a bunch of bartenders would host big events or at clubs when there's big parties. It was doing really well. He always had his head buried in some papers, and it's not as fun of a job as someone might think. It's less parties, more paperwork, and sales pitches late at night. Aitor grabbed his keys and jumped up. Where are you going? Huh? Where are you going? I'm going to Kiss Nightclub to give them a price sheet for an upcoming event, but I'm going to be back soon, Grandma. Like right back. I'm just giving them a price sheet. He ran out the door, and before closing it, he poked his head in and said, be back in no time, Grandma. He walked out.
And never came back.
He didn't come home last night, and his grandma had been worried sick about him. So when the door clicked open the next morning, she said, is that you, honey? She rushed to the front door, and instead of her grandson, it was her daughter. Aitor's mom, Livia.
Oh no.
No, Mom, it's me. Her eyes were bloodshot, and his grandma just knew. She felt like an 18-wheeler truck had just slammed straight into her chest. Livia's bosses, so this is Aitor's mom. Livia's bosses, they kept calling her to check up on her to see if there's anything that she needs. It had only been a few hours since she found out that Aitor had passed. She found out pretty quickly from the fire. And things were still developing. The bosses, had a son Livia's age, so they couldn't even imagine what Livia was going through. She must be absolutely destroyed. Livia told them she wouldn't be coming to work for a while, but politely declined all their other offers for help.
Aww.
She hadn't seen them or thought about them since, they're her bosses. But after she buried Aitor, she was walking around like a numb robot. Her body was responding physically. She felt pressure on her chest. Her eyes were never dry, constantly wet with tears. Her face was dry from the tears just getting dry on her cheeks, but she was just wandering around. And then she saw a pair of feet in front of her. She looked up, and there was her boss. And his eyes were swollen. And she knew that look. It was the look of a parent who had just lost everything. After they checked in on Livia about Aitor, Livia's bosses got the word that their son was also at that nightclub, and he also passed. And the two made eye contact, and without saying a single word, they stepped forward and they just let go in each other's arms, sobbing. There is a saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of a cure. And this entire incident could have been prevented. Experts state that there are almost 20 factors that could have prevented the fire from taking over 200 lives. Mm-hmm. The pyrotechnics were not indoor safe, the firework, and Marcelo is the one who brought and lit the firework, the lead vocalist for the band. What's crazy is that, obviously him purchasing an outdoor firework to be used indoor is a huge point of anger, but another thing that really confused and angered netizens and the public was the fact that he had a microphone right in front of his face. He could have taken 2 seconds to just scream out, "Fire, get out!" But he didn't. He didn't give everyone a heads up, and the authorities have no idea how many lives have been killed because of that one non-action.
Literally.
He would argue that his bandmates and himself were so busy turning off the electrical equipment for their gear when the fire started because the last thing they wanted was some sort of electrical fire or explosion to add to the mix. And because they were so hyper-fixated on saving lives. Marcelo did not have time or the capacity to scream into the mic that there was a fire. Most people do not believe him. They think this was a way for him and the others to get out of the club faster and easier without a crowd surge. He's at the far, deep corner of the club, but he was one of the first out.
Literally.
On top of that, some of the bandmates even had some of their instruments on them.
So you had time to hoard your
I guess I
instruments
didn't want to
out,
lose
but
him
you
in the
didn't want
fire.
to save anyone.
So he lights the firework. He escapes. No alarm or announcement is made by anyone else in the club either. The firework ignites the soundproofing foam on the ceiling of the club, but it's not. It's just polyurethane. There's also fabric curtains on the stage that don't help. It just spreads the fire faster. They try putting it out with water. That doesn't help. The fire extinguisher is empty because all they used it for was for parties. The club was dangerously over capacity because you know how every commercial business you walk into, a restaurant, bar, they have like maximum capacity signs.
Yeah.
There's a few ways officials calculate maximum capacity for a commercial space. Usually it all just comes down to fire code. How quickly can people get out of a space in case of an emergency? They factor in a few little details. The amount of exit doors. They do not go through the kitchen or storage room. They have to be pure exit doors. How wide are the exit doors? That's a whole thing. Okay, so based on the business and building, the club was supposed to have doors that were 14.5 feet wide, but the doors were only 8.39 feet wide.
Oh my God.
Anyway, it also factors in amount of doors, width of doors, and the amount of square footage of the place. Additionally, how many obstacles there will be at any given point inside to the closest exit door. So rule of thumb, restaurants will have way lower occupancy numbers than an open ballroom that doesn't have a lot of chairs and tables crowding the space. And even if you have a large venue, if you don't have enough exit doors, you're going to have a lower occupancy rate. The maximum capacity of KISS was 700 people. Experts speculate there was anywhere between 1,500 to 2,000 people there that night in a 6,700 square foot area. There were no emergency exits. The regulations state that there has to be at least 2 emergency exits on opposite sides of the building.
Right.
There were none. Everyone had to leave through one door, the same door that they came in through. But once they got to that door, there were illegally installed metal barriers trapping them in, making it that much harder to evacuate. Beyond the metal barrier, security guards were stationed at the doors, and since the communication amongst the employees was non-existent, which is a huge no-no for a venue like this, everybody needs to be on the same page. The
Right.
security guards were initially preventing people from getting out because they didn't know there was a fire. The lights had gone out. There were no adequate emergency exit signs, no sprinklers, no smoke control equipment. The original architectural plan for the building had a lot more windows and a smoke exhauster ventilation system, but those were later taken out to cut down on cost. Another combination of other incompetencies took place that factored into it. There were unauthorized renovations done, inefficient inspections from authorities. The club's fire prevention permit expired in August of 2012. Fraudulent signatures were placed on official documentation to approve renovations that were not up to code. And those are just the things wrong with the club. Other contributing factors were like authorities did not isolate the area around the club once the fire started, leading to chaos that led to less efficient medical transportation for the victims, not even protective gear for firefighters to go into the building. Civilians were going back into the building to save loved ones, leading to their deaths. I mean, all of these things delayed evacuation by a lot, and it just meant the difference between life and death for a lot of people.
Literally.
And guilt is a funny thing because there's no universal threshold for when someone should feel it. Some people could do the most heinous things and not feel an ounce of guilt. And some people could do nothing and guilt will eat away at their lives.
Yep.
The parents of the victims all put the burden of guilt on themselves. Maybe if they had asked their kids to stay home that night or asked them to come over early the next morning, maybe they wouldn't have been there. One mother blamed herself for buying her daughter heels. Her daughter, Thanise, had plans to attend that party, and she was trying on nice shoes and dresses. I don't think these are my style. She was staring at the heels she had tried on. She was always more of a sneakers and flats kind of girl. But her mom was like, you gotta live a little. All you do is study. Here, I'll buy you the heels, and you can wear them. Thanise went to KISS that night wearing a new dress and the heels that her mom bought her. At the club, she stepped outside for a moment to call her mom. Well, how is it? How's the party? Are you having a good time? Yeah, I'm having a blast, but these heels are killing me. They're hurting my feet. And the two would laugh about it. But once Thanise passed, her mom would always feel guilty about buying her those shoes. She said, I think about it a lot. How difficult it must have been for her to try and escape a place like that with those heels on. I should have never bought her those. The Biro family had 2 daughters, and they had both gone to KISS that night. Patricia, their eldest daughter, Patricia's husband, Gracie, their youngest daughter, and her boyfriend. The 4 of them had gone to the club when the fire broke out. The next morning, they got the call. They were in the car, rushing as fast as they could to try and find their daughters. And on the way there, Mr. Biro turned to his wife and said, My love, my hope is that the girls are safe, and they're just asleep at home. But if the worst has happened, we have no choice but to join them, yes? The parents went to the nightclub, and nothing. All 7 hospitals, nothing. They went to the gym and there were the 2 deceased bodies of their daughters, but also their 2 partners were found dead as well. The rescuers in charge of recovering the victims' bodies from the club and transporting them to the gym, one of them said, "I still feel it in my arms. I still feel the difference in the weights of the bodies that I carried. There were heavier ones and there were lighter ones. And at first we were all being so careful with the bodies, but it just never stopped coming. There was just another one and then another one, and it was just body after body, and I just wanted to get away from there, and I couldn't stand the tragedy anymore, so we just started rushing." Even at the gym, there's a photo of the president there, and along with other politicians, they had gone to the gym before any of the parents or family members were allowed in. And it's alleged that not all, but some of them were being very disrespectful. Not to the bodies, but they were treating this as a photo op, as a press tour of, look, just look at how sad I look while I look at this tragedy that has taken place in our country.
Bro, fuck that.
The volunteers were completely outraged. There's even a picture, again, not insinuating that the president did a photo shoot there or what her intentions were, but there's a photo where the president is holding whom we can assume is a victim's mother, and I guess it's supposed to look comforting, like she's one with the people. But one of the moms is just staring the camera down in the back, allegedly, likely because she wasn't allowed into the gym until the politicians were done.
Literally.
Now they're like making it a whole thing of trying to look good. I mean, it's the presumption of that photo. Eventually, the parents entered the gym where they would find hundreds of bodies neatly laid out on the floor. And it was a lot. I mean, a lot of lives were lost and a lot of lives were intertwined because it's a venue. People went with their friends and their families. So in the process of trying to find their child, a lot of families would find 2, 3 of their children's best friends. Or some parents, they would see their son-in-law or their daughter's boyfriends laying on the other side of the gym opposite the significant others. It was a lot. And because of that, a lot of the parents decided to have a funeral right there, a collective funeral for all the friends and family to be buried together. Over 100 coffins were lined up in the gym, and there's a very well-known photo from one of the funerals. It's of a woman named Yasmin crying on top of her boyfriend's coffin. It was Yasmin's birthday, and she just remembered she wanted to look really good for Lucas. So she had picked out this white dress and gold strappy heels. She painted her nails red. When the fire broke out, Lucas had gone to the restroom and Yasmin was near the front door. Someone yanked her out of the club and she was fighting them, kicking, screaming, "I have to go back. Lucas is in there. I have to go back." But it was too late. Lucas was gone, and the picture of her crying over the casket would be seen all over the world. And side note, a magazine published this picture on their front page, and there was a huge controversy because people thought it was staged. They thought the magazine had hired a model and got a casket prop to take this shot. Because
why would they say that?
She's wearing like this fedora, and the angle of the photo, it looks very almost cinematic in a way. I think people wanted it to be staged because I think once you realize it's a very real photo, it feels a lot heavier to look at that photo. Outside of the club, there were some really bad people also involved in this case. The cost of coffins, caskets, and flowers skyrocketed to the point where it was speculated that after the tragedy, people went around buying up all the coffins and caskets so that they could turn around and sell it for 4 times the price to the grieving parents. It was really gross. Other people resorted to victim blaming. One pastor at a victim's funeral literally went up on stage and said, "Let this death be an example for all of you. Children who disobey your parents. If Augusto were at church, he would not be dead right now."
Bro.
Some netizens even told the parents
Fuck
it's their
that.
fault for raising children that would go to nightclubs, that would go
Fuck
clubbing.
you if you're gonna tell me that, bro. Fuck
There
you.
were other netizens that, I don't know if they were necessarily trying to be disrespectful, but there were a lot of theories going around that were connecting this incident to other mass tragedies in history that I don't even feel comfortable touching upon because it's just not a connection I think should have been made. Other netizens were just speculating if anybody foreshadowed this. So there were some party goers who had tweeted things like, "Let's set Kiss on fire tonight," because, they're just saying like, let's have fun. The Kiss owner had said he wants to take the club international. People thought he was foreshadowing it. There was a netizen rumor going around that we have no idea if this is true, that one of the last songs played was Die Young by Kesha.
Oh my
Because
God.
the lyrics go, I hear your heartbeat to the beat of the drums. What a shame you came here with someone. So while you're here in my arms, let's make the most of the night like we're going to die young. Take my hand, I'll show you the wild side, like it's the last night of our lives.
Bro.
We'll keep dancing until we die.
But I thought it was the band that was playing.
Yeah, so they were doing like cover songs and interchanging and stuff. Just to clarify again, though, we don't know if the song was played. Now, in the end, 4 people would be tried for what happened that night at Kiss. The 2 owners of the club, Kiko Spoor and Mauro Hoffman. The band lead vocalist would also be tried, the one that ignited the firework, Marcelo.
Yes.
And the band producer that also helped light the firework, Luciano, he would be tried.
Good.
All 4 were indicted for murder, and all 4 of them came locked and loaded with just excuse after excuse. They were blaming
course.
everybody. The club owners are blaming the authorities like, well, you didn't do your inspections correctly enough then, because that's your job. That's not my job to go to the law. That's why you're an inspector.
Oh my god.
Marcelo was blaming the firework company. He was like, well, I just asked him for the firework, but he didn't give me the original box it came in. If I had read the box and said, don't light it inside, then I probably would have let it
when you
inside.
bought it.
The owners also resorted to blaming Marcelo, and they're like, well, we don't use pyrotechnics at our club. Like, we don't do any of that. But that was a lie, because there's lots of pictures and videos of pyrotechnics being used at the club. I mean, like most clubs use it. They put the giant sparklers in the champagne tubes and they bring them to the VIP tables. He's like, no, we never do that. But they did.
Liar.
They did use them. Maybe not to that scale that Marcelo did, but they did. Side note, Kiko, the owner of the club, is a character. He did interviews during all of this where he blamed the architects, safety inspectors, basically everyone but himself. He even blamed the whole country and said it was a succession of errors made by the whole country.
Oh my god.
He also spent a good amount of time in the interview crying about how he had trouble sleeping in jail and how he had to spend his birthday in jail. And that was rough for him.
Poor you.
He also tried to lie and said the lights never turned off in the club, even though there's so much evidence to argue otherwise. He's like, yeah, no, the lights were always on, so they could have escaped if they really wanted to.
Are they not the most hated people
Yeah.
in Brazil? Like,
Yeah. It was rough.
People
It
are
was
so
rough. The
selfish,
police,
bro.
ambulances, the firefighters, they were all under fire. More so the firefighters, but I would say the other groups, they got a lot of heat because they didn't have a disaster plan in that city. It was just chaos. They didn't rope off the perimeter. They didn't do anything. The ambulances were so disorganized. They wasted so much time. They also started transporting dead bodies to hospitals. And I think in any other situation, that's such a human thing to do. And we can see why they did it, because they don't want to believe these people are dead. But the doctors told them they're dead. And there are victims that needed help. There's a man, this picture is pretty famous in association with this case. There's a picture of a man running around with a limp body in his arms. He was just looking for any vehicle to send this man to the hospital. There were none. But he did not let this man out of his arms until he was certain that he was going to get to a hospital. But even then, it was too late. By the time he got there, he had died. And the victim's sister, Bruna, had called Ezekiel, who's the bodybuilder. And she cried and said, "Thank you for trying. Thank you for trying to save my brother." Furthermore, there was a lot of discourse about the firefighters at the scene during the rescue efforts. The firefighters went in depth about their rescue efforts, how it was so tough, they were understaffed, how they had not enough oxygen tanks to go in, and each oxygen tank only had 10 minutes of oxygen in there. So once they went into the club, they couldn't even see. They said the flashlights would be shining and they can't see like an arm's length away from their face because the smoke is so thick. They said they were just trying so hard. They would stay in there even after their oxygen ran out to risk it, to save these people, to be there for everyone, because that's what firefighters do. They're hosing it down. They're axing down the walls. They were desperate, doing whatever they could. These statements would later become a huge controversy because the surviving victims, one of them, Giovanni, remember he saved his brother. Yeah, he said no, none of the firefighters were actually going inside to rescue people. They were all just standing near the door. Maybe they were inside the club, but like right next to the door, grabbing bodies from the civilians who were inside saving people without any gear.
Bruh.
Giovanni said they would just stand at the door and a civilian would run out from inside the club holding someone, and they would take that person from the civilian rescuer and let them run back inside the club.
That's
Giovanni
fucked
stated
up.
that he even asked for oxygen tanks from the firefighters so that they could run back in and stay in there longer, and they refused to give it to him. And again, we don't know which side is true, but I just don't know why a survivor would have any incentive to lie about something like this.
Right.
And on top of that, the firefighters would, even though they refute all these claims, they would later be tried in military court, but usually military court for situations like this is a slap on the wrist. But in the end, all four, the two owners, the lead vocalist, and the band producer, they all got around 18 to 22 years in prison.
that's it?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, they
you're about
did
to be so upset. but it was immediately overturned.
Are you fucking
Allegedly,
kidding me?
the judge kept having lunches with the jury. I don't know why, okay? No one knows why. The judge would state that they just do that. They just have lunch with the jurors. But they don't talk about the case. They said that there were guards present, and they were certain they never talked about the case. But the defense attorneys were like, that's tampering with the jury, so absolutely not. It was overturned, and since then, there has never been another trial.
Oh,
They're just free.
my God.
What?
Nothing happened to them. Yeah, it's speculated that maybe the club owners had ties
That
to
makes
the
me so
government
fucking
or
mad.
something, because there's just no way this makes sense. It was one of the biggest cases in Brazil. Like, all of Brazil was hurting. I just don't see why. It doesn't... Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
I hope they got what came.
There's
what
just a lot of
coming
odd
to them.
connections. The main prosecutor, this is way before the fire, had been tasked with investigating the club for noise pollution and permitting, like violating permits. He ends up retiring in the middle of these investigations. His son ends up becoming the lawyer that represents the club during the permitting investigations.
So the son switched side from investigating to defending?
Or the prosecutor could, again, speculation, be friendly with the club and had plans to not really do anything about the breaking of the violations. And then now that he's retired, the son knows the insider details, allegedly, if the dad just tells him this is what the prosecutors know, and can rep them in a way that's more beneficial. Is, I don't know, a speculation, but there's just a lot of odd coincidences. Oh yeah, okay, side note, the parents are also going to get sued for defamation
What?
by the prosecutors, because the parents were coming out saying, I think that this is like bribery and corruption. There's just no way.
Yeah.
They were getting sued by the prosecutors.
Oh my
So the
God.
public, they called this the second tragedy of Kiss, because it is. In response to the public, the prosecutors stated that they would stop suing the parents, but the parents said, no, keep suing us. Prove to us that we're liars then. Prove it. Prove it. Then the judge stepped in and tried to close the case by, quote, forgiving the parents of the victims without even doing a proper investigation. The parents didn't want that either. What was there to forgive them for? They wanted a full investigation into the truth because they know that they're not lying. So
Right.
everyone else can try to prove it. That didn't go anywhere, though, because the justice system is confusing
It's fucked up.
and not great anywhere. This is
Yeah.
not just Brazil, by the way, just
Fucked up.
anywhere. Because before
Everywhere.
anyone even judges Brazil, we had a situation in Rhode Island in the United States very similar, where a club was lit on fire from pyrotechnics. A lot of lives were lost. Now, with that, there were massive protests all over Brazil with signs that read, "Where were you on January 27th, 2013?" And people tried to hold protest marches, but in the end, nothing really came of it. There is still no justice.
Which is fucked up.
The land that the club has been sitting on and the club itself has been given to the parents of the victims. They are going to put up a memorial there to remind everyone that drives past, like, this is what happens. We cannot let this happen again. It does seem some changes are being made. There are some regulations that are being enforced to make Santa Maria safer. Stricter standards are being enforced for commercial businesses with large fines if protocol is broken. But it's just been, I don't really have the words. Recently, a band in Dubai was under fire because they were performing on stage. They lit up a firework and they shouted, "Hello, Kiss Nightclub."
No.
Yeah, they apologized on Instagram and they moved on. But for a lot of parents and families, they can't move on because it feels like time has stopped January 27th of 2013.
Right.
And that is the story of the Kiss nightclub fire. What are your thoughts? Let me know. Please stay safe, and I will see you guys on Wednesday for the next episode. Bye.
Bro. That's so fucked up, bro. If people were get more careful, thought about what they did. They didn't try to be cheap. I'm still scared. That's fucked up, bro. And then the people who caused it and were responsible, nothing happened to them. Fucked up. That's fucked up. So fucked up. Crazily fucked up. I think stream should end here, or we should watch heartwarming stuff. I still gotta play Crime Scene Cleaner, bro, but fuck. I feel like before we watch Crime Scene Cleaner, We need to watch something happy. Excuse me. I'm not ending the stream. I'm not ending the stream. Are you leaving, Ghost? Yeah, I'm asleep. Alright. Good night, Ghost. Try to recover after that, please. No, Yuki, why are you playing League? Alright, let's watch this.
Oh my god, bitch.
We need happy moments. Oh shit. If you guys enjoyed this YouTube video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe to bell, turn notifications. That shit was really deep. Now I need to watch happy shit to cheer me up before we play some Crime Six Leader. But like I said, guys, let me know what you thought about in the comments below this video. Did you guys unlock any new fears? And I will see you guys all in the next stream or video. Bye.